So I decided that now is a good time for me to make my second mock draft for 2021 because of the fact that there is a stoppage in play due to All-Star Weekend and the order is kind of set and it's not in constant movement like it usually is. Another reason I did because there have been changes to my board. I've moved guys up, I've moved guys down. It's going to be a lot of fun because of the G League guys. There have been guys that have been better than I thought. There's guys that moved down, obviously. And you know, the order's different, and it's always fun to talk about the draft. You know, that's one of the things I always have to talk about on this channel. And I don't want to always just make a mock draft every week. And I wanted to space it out. I think, you know, there's been enough time between 1.0 and 2.0 for me to make this video. Before we do get into today's video, if you're new and you like basketball, I really think you would love this channel. So if you haven't already, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, be notified whenever I release a video. I make videos to take elements of film essays and apply them to basketball. And I make videos covering the draft and high school sports as well. So if you're into any of those things, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. I really think you would love it here. Trying to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and doing all those things would be a big help to me. Try to get this video to 100 likes maybe, so YouTube will recommend it. I know that's a bit of a lofty expectation, but I think we can do it. And, you know, with that being said, let's get right into the video. Cade Cunningham is the best player in this draft. In a way, he's kind of like a Meso, in the sense of where a Meso was a character that had the ability to match the skill sets of all the members of the Justice League. Cade Cunningham is a player that has the skill sets to play 1 through 4 and has the size to play 1 through 4. His combination of size, skill, and intangibles on both ends of the floor are rare. You don't see this often, if at all. And you might be saying, why would the Timberwolves take a point guard? Well, I mentioned earlier that he can play multiple positions, and he can play in lineups with D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, and that's the joy of him. You know, he's somebody that you don't have a set position for him because he can play multiple positions and play in multiple lineups and do so many different things. And really, having that kind of skill set is rare, and having the leadership qualities that are rare. And really, when you look at a prospect, and the only real concern you have is he could tighten up the handle a bit, and you have somebody that's more than worthy of the first overall pick. I know the assist numbers at Oklahoma State aren't great, but at the same time, you know, you have to watch the tape. He's making the right passes. He's making insane passes. It's just that guys around him aren't finishing plays. They aren't hitting open shots, things like that. So he's still more than worthy of the first overall pick. He's still easily the best player in this draft, in my opinion. And really, my thoughts on him haven't changed. I still think this is a generational talent. Evan Mobley, in the sense, is skill-wise at least, the apex of the center position. He has elite offensive versatility and elite defensive versatility. On offense, he can shoot, he has a good handle, he passes well. I would say that it's more about his vision than his accuracy. He does need to work a bit on the accuracy, but I do think as far as his vision, it's off the charts for somebody at the center spot. His movement skills are more guard wing-like than they are big man-like. And this is a guy that's 7 feet tall, so having those kind of movement skills is insane. He moves well laterally, he can switch, he can hedge, he can drop, he can do any defensive coverage you want him to. Skill-wise, I don't think there's a hole in his game. And on top of this, he has a feel for the game that just really can't be taught. and you have a perfect center prospect. Now, the one thing he does need to work on is adding weight to his frame. He is only 210 pounds. I think that his frame suggests he could get to 240, 245 maybe. But regardless, I do think that he's skilled enough to the point where if he's only 220, 230, he's more than skilled enough to play the power forward position. This is, again, someone with little to no flaw in his game. And I think entering the year, I had concerns about his motor, but watching him, he's been awesome. And the motor isn't as big of a concern. And I do think that a lot of the times, his struggles come from the fact that he's not playing in an offense that's designed for him at all. I would equate Jonathan Kuminga to a superhero when he first gets his powers and has no idea how to control these powers. He's one of the highest upside players in the draft. He has great athleticism and size for such a young player. He just turned 18 a few months ago. And he's a year younger than guys like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Suggs. So that goes to show you that he's actually been really good, and he's younger than a lot of these other top guys. He has good form on his set shot, although I do think some lower body mechanics on his off the dribble shot need to be improved. He has some passing flashes as well, which I don't think are getting talked about enough. Has some defensive versatility due to his frame and athleticism, which is NBA ready already at only, 18 years old. He has some things to improve on though. He's not perfect. Needs to improve his shot selection. Needs to improve his defensive awareness. Needs to improve his decision making. It's just about putting it all together with him. You watch him play and you see it. And I know he hasn't been great in the G League. He isn't the most efficient, He's had his struggles. But I definitely think that the confidence is there. And I'm seeing signs of improvement. Like, he's definitely looked like a more complete player than he was in high school. And that's a sign, because he had shown improvement every year in high school. And he's shown improvement in the G League. It's just about putting that all together now. Like, even if the numbers don't look great, the fact that he's able to hold his own, and when he drives, no one can really stop him. In the G League, where he's going up against, guys that have played in the NBA and overseas for high-level leagues. So, the fact that he's already shown a certain level of dominance, even if the numbers don't suggest it, at the G League level, it's going to be scary if he puts it all together. And I think Houston might be a good place to do that for him. Jalen Green has impressed me a lot. I will say that. He's somebody that, entering the season, I had my concerns about shot selection, handle, things like that. But he looked amazing in the G League. He was super efficient and a much better shooter from three than I thought he would be in the G League, especially at this level. And the fact that he played as well as he did at that level against guys who have NBA experience, that's very encouraging. He's a generational athlete with the best body control when finishing around the rim in this draft by a long shot. Like, it's him, and the next closest guy is probably 2 tiers below him in that skill. He still needs to work on the handle, I will say that. Although I don't think it's as bad as I thought it would be, and I think that because it's improving, that's an encouraging sign. Also just needs to improve on expanding the other aspects of his game to increase his ceiling. I think his passing is solid. I think that the rebounding's solid. And I think that once he adds weight and gets more engaged, I think the defense will be fine. But to expand on at least one of those skills to make it so you go from a guy whose ceiling is a second or third option to maybe the ceiling of a number one. Things like that. It's not, guaranteed, but I definitely think it's something he could work on. And of course, adding weight to his frame, he's only 178 pounds. But for Orlando, he's somebody that, they just need an exciting scorer. They haven't had that. Maybe Cole Anthony could be it, but there's health concerns with him. Fultz is dealing with injuries. And, you can get an explosive scorer like Jalen Green, who has, I'm not saying he is Zach LaVine, because I know I've seen that comparison a lot, but, you know, maybe that kind of potential to reach that kind of level of a player of a LaVine, you know, I think that if you can get a chance at that, I think you would take it. I think Jalen Green in Orlando would be a lot of fun. Zion Williams is one of the more interesting players in the draft, in my opinion. When you look at the numbers, they don't look great. He's only averaging like 11 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Isn't the most efficient, to say the least. But when you watch him play, there are a lot of encouraging signs. He has really intriguing shot creating indicators, especially as a 6'8", you know, wing type player. He's a great competitor that has a great motor. And for somebody, you know, that has like high upside per se, and somebody that, you know, has potential but the numbers don't always show it, having a great motor is a great sign. He needs to work on the consistency. I know I said that, you know, you can't just look at the numbers, you have to watch the tape, but consistency is a problem. He needs to add weight to his frame. He's only 185 pounds at 6'8", which is pretty skinny. He still, though, is someone that I have a lot of belief in. And the reason I have a lot of belief in him is because even though he's struggled throughout the season, he's had his up and downs, to say this. It's definitely been a roller coaster for him in that regard. He still keeps high energy and is always passionate and always competitive. And to see somebody not let those struggles get in the way of their mindset on the basketball court, of being aggressive and being a great competitor and having a great motor, that's a very encouraging sign for his work ethic, and I believe it's an encouraging sign that he will show improvement. And for Sacramento, you look at the team, it's like, okay, they don't need a point guard, they don't need a shooting guard either, because even if you get rid of Buddy Hield, Tyrese Haliburton could play the 2 guard. You look at, you know, power forward, I think Marvin Bagley, there's still something there. I think that sooner or later he's going to have to pop it, and if they don't want to give up on him, but you know, there's still something there. And I think, you know, center, I don't think there's a center that's worth a top 5 pick at this point. So I think getting Zion Williams, who is a high upside guy, and somebody that has, you know, a great motor, I think that could be something that Sacramento could use. Scottie Barnes might be the walking definition of I love basketball. He is a great competitor with an insane motor. I'm convinced the guy plays every game like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. He has great passing skills and a great basketball IQ on offense for a player at the power forward position. High IQ player on defense as well as great defensive versatility, and having the motor on top of, you know, the skills on defense, you know, that really makes him safe. And the fact that his motor and he's that competitive with that level of an IQ on both ends of the floor really makes him one of the more safe players in the draft, in my opinion. Like, he's one of the 2 or 3 safest players in this draft, at least to me. He's somebody that I don't see like not finding some level of success in the league. At worst, he's a glue guy. At best, I think he could play a Draymond Green kind of role. I don't think he's Draymond Green. I think that they're different types of players, but, you know, I definitely think that, you know, somebody that could average like, you know, anywhere between 10 to 15 points and then like 10 rebounds, anywhere between 5 to 7 assists. Like, I think that's something that Scottie Barnes could be capable of as a ceiling. I do think the fact that his jump shot is very limited. He has been confident in taking them, but the form needs a lot of work, and I don't know how fixable it is. So that does limit his ceiling, but I definitely think that, you know, for Cleveland, they still need defense, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong about that. They have Jared Allen, who should be starting, by the way. They have Isaac Okoro, who they drafted. I don't know a lot about that, but I think that with Scottie Barnes, it just made the most sense to me, because he's not someone that needs the basketball in his hands to have an impact. And when you have Colin Sexton, you have Darius Garland as your guys who are going to be score first, score second, or score first, pass second. you know, having a guy like Scotty Barnes who can make a massive impact on the game without scoring, you know, that's a valuable asset. And I just think that it made the most sense because I think there's better players that are still available, but they're guys that are more offense oriented. And I just think getting Scotty Barnes would be the smart move. I know this is a bit lower than you would expect Jalen Suggs, but I will remind you that a mock draft is not like a big boy. You know, just because he's going later than some guys does not mean that I believe that the other guys that went ahead of him are better. Like, especially with those 3 guys that went ahead of him at 4, 5, and 6, I don't have him rated higher on my board than Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs is rated higher than all of them. But just because of positional fits and team needs, he does end up falling a bit. He probably will go higher in the real draft because I think the team will trade up, or you know, some team will just take him because the best player available. But I think what people need to understand with Jalen Suggs is that he's not a true point guard. He's somebody that's more of a combo guard type. He floats between the point guard and the shooting guard role. He's somebody that I think in the NBA will play a somewhat similar role to what Tyrese Haliburton does, where they're clearly not the primary initiator, because I don't think that his handle is good enough necessarily to be a primary guy. I don't think he has a bad handle. I actually think it's a good handle, but I don't think it's good enough to be that primary guy. And because of that, I think that he becomes a secondary playmaker, but he ends up probably being the best passer on the team, which is very similar to Tyrese Haliburton. Like, Haliburton's clearly the best best passer on the Sacramento Kings, but even though he's the best passer, Fox is still the primary initiator. And I think, you know, Suggs, it will be very similar to that, where he's the best passer on the team, but he isn't the primary initiator, and he kind of plays a secondary initiator role where he is a scorer. Now, he isn't Tyrese Haliburton, even though I made that comparison. Tyrese Haliburton is a better shooter than Jalen Suggs is, and Jalen Suggs is a much better athlete than Tyrese Haliburton is. But I definitely think that role in that combo Swiss Army guard type player, I think that, you know, that's something that he will be. I don't think he's a true point guard like some people do. I have him 5th on my board, which is a bit lower than a lot of people do. I think a lot of people have him top 3. I understand having him 3rd, but I think that a few players are better and have a bit more of a higher upside than he does, but I still think he's going to be a very good player regardless. Moses Moody is one of my favorite players in this draft. He's one of the best shooters in the draft. He has two-way potential. He's really just everything you kind of look for in a 2-guard that, you know, maybe won't be your star, but definitely can be a foundational piece for a contender. He can shoot, play some defense. You know, he draws contact well. He has a great frame at 6'6", 205 with room to grow. He's young. And again, this is probably a best player available situation if you're picking him at 8. And for New Orleans, I actually think it makes a lot of sense to take him. I know they had Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but I don't think that he's good enough to justify passing on Moody. And secondly, their biggest position of need is center. I don't think there's a center in this draft that would be available with the 8th pick that wouldn't be reaching. Because trust me, they already reached with Jackson Hayes, and we all know how that one has really turned out. So I think just getting a guy that could be potentially the shooting guard of the future, Nickeil Alexander, doesn't work out, or at worst can be a 3-and-D guy off the bench, is valuable for New Orleans, because, you know, it's a team where it's like, I think that, you know, there are guys that you can look at in this range that maybe are more entertaining, but they don't necessarily fit, because I think Lonzo Ball's playing the best basketball of his career right now, and so you don't really need a point guard. And even if, you know, Lonzo Ball doesn't re-sign with the New Orleans Pelicans and ends up leaving, you drafted Kyler Lewis, who in the moments that he gets this season has shown promise. So you don't really need a point guard. You have Ingram, You have Zion, who's your centerpiece of the team. You know, there isn't a big man on the board that's really worth reaching for, so that leaves shooting guard, which I think is the position they can improve on the most, even if Nickeil Alexander-Walker has some promise. Jaden Springer is one of my favorite players in the draft. I would actually argue he might be my favorite player in this draft. He's my number 4 prospect in this draft. I think that he's better than guys that are gonna sock you, that I believe that he's better than. He's somebody that I've always been high on, even when he was, in high school at IMG Academy. And he's somebody that, I think is a relatively high floor player because of his motor. He's a great motor. He's a great competitor. IMG's head coach said he's the most competitive player he's ever coached. And IMG Academy has had a lot of great basketball players. And to be the most competitive guy out there, that's impressive. He's somebody, it's kind of hard to just use straight up stats to talk about his game because, the 13 points, the 4 rebounds, 3 assists on good efficiency, but limited amount of, 3-point attempts, things like that. It's not a great indicator because he's playing in an offense that doesn't necessarily always play to his great skill sets, and he's also playing on a team that's, rather talented. But he has more than shown flashes of being someone that can get to the line at a high rate. He's shown flashes as somebody that could be a guy that could play the point guard and the shooting guard. Definitely more of a combo guard, I would say, but has shown he can take responsibility at that point guard spot, even if I would say he's naturally a 2 guard. When you watch him play, it's definitely, to an extent, an unorthodox kind of style, but it works. I definitely think it's translatable because of the motor, because of the defense. He's a good athlete. He, again, shows these flashes of being someone that can score at a 20-point per game level consistently if he's put in the right situation. And I think for OKC, you get a guy like this who can play point guard, he can play shooting guard, and you put him with Shai, who, can play point guard, can play shooting guard, and you put them together, and you have so much versatility with those two as the guards of your future. And I think that's something that OKC could use because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has shown so much promise. I think his ceiling is so much higher than a lot of people believe it's gonna be, and I think having a guy like Jaden Springer next to him could be awesome for their future. Corey Kispert is the definition of the high floor, low ceiling kind of player. You really know what you're gonna get from him, which is wing shooting. And for Atlanta, you really aren't gonna get a guy that's likely gonna be a starter in this draft. And you just want someone that is experienced and can contribute off the bench probably right away. And I think Corey Kispert could be that guy. There are definitely guys that I think are better. Guys like Jalen Johnson, guys like Franz Wagner. Guys like that that will be on the board, that may be a bit more intriguing. Usman Garuba is another name that comes to mind. But at the same time, you're a team that's trying to make the playoffs. You're a team that's trying to build around Trae Young. And you need guys that can contribute right away. And Corey Kispert's going to be a guy that I believe you can have and contribute right away. Because you look at the situation, they have their upside guys. They have Okongwu. They have Kemba. They have DeAndre Hunter, who's established himself as someone that could be like a 15 to 20 point per game scorer and play good defense. Kemba can play good defense. Okongwu, once he gets acclimated, I think he's going to be a monster on defense. So I don't think you need to worry about defense as much. But what I do think you need to worry about is just getting guys that can contribute. And Corey Kispert will contribute. Do I think he's going to be a star? No, but he's definitely somebody that any team in the 10 to 15 range is going to be at the top of their board because of the fact that they know he's going to be a safe player, and his skills are translatable, and he can contribute right away. Sorry that I stuttered at the end. But that is the end of this video. If you've made it to this point, thank you so much. If you haven't already, feel free to like, subscribe, do all of those things. I wanted to get to the full lottery, but I got to like the 5th or 6th pick, and I saw how long the video was up to that point, and then I realized I can probably only do the top 10, because if I did the full lottery, we might be here for an hour. But you know, I definitely plan on making these shorter moving forward, so I can do the full lottery. So keep that in mind. So yeah, this is the mock draft. This is bound to change because of the order. Guys are gonna go up and down the board as I watch more film. And yeah, that's basically all I gotta say. If you enjoyed it, like, those always help. I don't think people talk about that, and I know a lot of you won't make it to this point, but if you did, thank you so much and have a nice day.